Welcome back to Celebrity Radio. It's Alex Belfield talking to some of the country's biggest stars, legends, and some of my favourite people too. And we've got one for you today. Jess Conrad has been entertaining his entire life, and I'm delighted to say we saw him Tuesday nights at 9 o'clock on ITV in this new series, Last Laugh in Las Vegas, and I was there for his fabulous performance. Jess, how are you?
I'm very, very, very well, Alex. I'd like to congratulate ITV for their amazingly hit show and thank them for including me in it. If I may, I'd just like to kind of explain to the listeners, and most of whom I'm sure saw the show, or at least half of which saw the show, about that very first episode, because we haven't seen anything. I'd like to say that the first day I was picked up here with the limousine, thank you very much, ITV, and taken to London Airport. We flew BA, and we were 12 hours, so we were up early in the morning. We flew for 12 hours. It was a daytime flight, so we didn't sleep. When we got to Vegas, we were excited, but by that time, pretty tired. And not only was it not nighttime, which we thought it would be, there's then a change of time, and it's now early morning. So we've got to live through 2 days in one, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So by the time we got to the house, which is called Dreams and Desires, which was a wonderful big house, as people saw, we were kind of legless and very, very tired. And they told us to wait in the foyer for a moment, and then they said there's 9 celebrities and there's only 8 bedrooms. Now we all, because we needed to get to a bedroom, we all left at the same time. I mean, we all started to scamper up the stairs at the same time, and I'm the oldest, but I guess the fittest, and I got up the stairs first, and I got into the first room, which after we'd all looked round and saw everybody else's room, was the smallest room, and I jokingly said, but it's got the biggest mirror. Well, somebody on Tweet said it was great fun. He had the smallest room but the biggest mirror, which was great fun.
Yeah.
And then, of course, afterwards, I then turned into Jack Nicholson from The Shining, because I thought we were playing this game and we were all overtired. We were arguing with one another, but underneath we were laughing, you know. And then we all started rolling about in people's beds. And as I say, I had the worst room, although I got up the stairs first. But I'd just like to explain that to everybody. That's what happened, and we were overtired.
Yeah.
And so we don't know what's going to happen in the next series. I know that I went to Elvis's hotel. I spoke about Elvis. I got some very good facts about Elvis that I can't tell you now, that will be a surprise. I also went to the Liberace Museum, which was fantastic, and the whole thing was really fantastic. But it was hard work. We worked from 8 in the morning till 10 at night, and this was our first reality show. You know, there's a whole new generation now of reality stars. It's a completely new genre. You don't have to be a good actor, a good singer, or a good performer. It's a whole new different thing, this reality TV. And this was my first go at it, and most of the others as well. So we were all thrown in the deep end, in a way. We all had to audition for it. And when we all got together, we realized that we're all great friends. I'd done 3 or 4 pantos with Bernie Clifton, Sweet Charity with Sue Pollard, Anita Harris. I've done so many TV shows with, and plays and musical. So we knew everybody, and it was a great family warmth about all of us. Although sometimes we argued on camera just because we were doing a show and they wanted a bit of up and down. But we will remain friends forever, because it was a wonderful situation and a wonderful bonding of 9 9 people.
Jess, here's the problem I have with the programme, and I had dinner with Sue Pollard last Monday, and I said to her, were they filming it to make legends out of you, or were they filming it to make entertainment? And I'm not sure which way it's going to go. There is a risk with reality that they just want you all to punch each other, and the show becomes irrelevant. And the fact that they're not playing the show out in full on ITV does suggest it is an entertainment show more than showing you as a star, isn't it?
I think so. I mean, you know, I was made to be the kind of bad guy. And I've had to explain myself a few times. Of course, they're also playing on my persona. They like me to set myself up, and a lot of the general public don't really understand that, but they should, because the last time I was on major television in the Generation Game with Jim Davidson, every time I walked on, he blew me up. And also, I did the blue version of Cinderella, and I toured all over England, you know, playing Prince Charming. And the variety side of Jess Conrad is very tongue-in-cheek. The acting side is very serious. I mean, Talking Pictures is full of films that I've made in the past, and you know, my last big film was I played Larry Pounds in Telstar. And I'm a serious actor, but the variety side for me, it's very difficult having two kind of careers. The variety side of me, I realized when I was a young singer and was voted England's most popular singer in 1961, and I won the equivalent of the X Factor. A man called Jack Good, who was the Simon Cowell of that era, discovered me, and he knew that I couldn't sing, and he based me on a good-looking boy in America called Fabian, who, you know, couldn't sing. But in those days, you didn't have to sing. You had to look like a pop star, and I looked like the archetypal pop star. So they made me a pop star. But so that when I started to do my live concerts, I realized that I had to do something else other than sing. And when I was a young boy, I was first so impressed with a wrestler called Gorgeous George, who loved himself and took out a mirror. Yes. And that's always been in my head. And then when I first saw Liberace early on, you know, I loved that charisma he had of being just larger than life, you know, and loved himself. And I used to stand at the back of the Palladium for 5 shillings and see all the great stars. And a lot of them had this kind of persona of being really somebody else, you know, and that's really me. I mean, basically, you know, I'm a married man with children, grandchildren, but my stage persona when I do my concerts is you know, at the end I thank the band, the lighting man, the sound man for making me sound good. I'd like to thank my tailor. I'd like to thank my makeup artist. I'd like to thank my hairdresser. But most of all, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you. So the whole thing is really, you know, when I go to the theatre, or the variety theatre, I like to see something that you don't see next door. So I always like to be very sort of glamorous and well-dressed and a bit over the top. And of course, that's what I'm doing in this show, and they're loving it. They're only showing the bits where really I'm doing my funny bit, you know. I mean, I can't cook, I can't do anything. And you'll probably see all that in the show.
I'm 38 now. The first time I ever saw you on stage was in Cinderella, believe it or not, with an S, with Jim Davidson. Jim, who I love very, very much. I think he's an incredible entertainer. And he sort of introduced me to you. But if we go back to the 60s, we must remember you were a sex symbol. We're not joking. You were an incredibly good-looking man.
Women passed out when they saw me in the street. I opened a few shops and it went round, don't have Jess Conrad, because they come through the bloody windows. You know, it's just dumb. I mean, women still fall for me now. That's mainly because they're too old to stand up. but see, that's another line that they won't understand.
I did. I got it.
But you know, it's that kind of. Yes, I was. Because I was on television every Saturday over a period of 3 shows, which was Oh Boy, Wham, and Boys Meets Girls. And at 6 o'clock on a Saturday, there were no teenagers anywhere. They were at home watching. And as I say, I was voted England's most popular singer in 1961 with the New Musical Express, and I've had 3 gold discs. And then the Beatles came along a long time after, and thank God I trained as an actor, so I went into musicals. I played Jesus in Godspell, and of course was the very first Joseph, and Joseph and his amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. And when I did Joseph, I had 2 generations of fans. I was so lucky because the mums were my original fans from my 60s days, heartthrob days, if you like, and their children were a new set of fans I got through being Joseph fans. So I've been very lucky in my career.
Did the Lord make you get your six-pack out in that show? Because they do these days, don't they?
The what?
Did the Lord make you take your top off? Because in Joseph now he has to come on in just a loincloth mostly.
Well, yes. Well, that's another story, of course. When I was a kid, I was mad about films and everything, never thinking I'd be in films myself or anything in show business. And I didn't like English leading men because they were so weenie and couldn't take their shirts off and always had vests on and were white. And American stars, you know, Curtis and Burt Lancaster, they were so much more attractive and looked better. And I didn't want a body like Superman. I wanted a body like Burt Lancaster. And I got a body like Burt Lancaster because I worked at it. Well, there were no such things as gyms in my days, and you had to find weights. And I found a pair of weights in a school, and I used to go there in the evenings and pick up these weights and work. And there were no such things as gyms, so it was very difficult. But when I started in business and the show business and did all my plays on tour, Tolan in the Knack and Danny in Night Must Fall, I even took weights with me and did a workout before I went on stage, even if I was in a straight play. So by the time I got to Joseph, I was probably the best Joseph at that time, and maybe up until today, that I did take my shirt off, and it was a great success. And as you say, Bill Kenwright has kept it in, and they do it even today.
Yeah, incredible.
So in the end, it was worth all that hard work to get a really good body, you know.
I wish I could have had your eyes for decades, and I tell you why I say it. Last week I was at Sir Ken Dodd's funeral, and it seems to me the 60s and 70s were the heyday of show business. I'm not really wrong, am I? There was never a bigger period to be a star.
No, Ken Dodd was such a wonderful, he was a water rat, and I met him several times, and I did the silly thing of going backstage at the Palladium, and you know, my wife thought I'd be home about midnight. I came home at 8 o'clock in the morning. I mean, you know, once you're backstage with him, you know, you never leave. But he, of course, was there will never be another Ken Dodd. You know, there'll probably never be another Larry Grayson. I mean, we had such iconic people, you know, and even when you go back to like people like Max Miller, I mean, they were such characters. Now I find people kind of, I like celebrities to have their own persona, you know, a big persona. Now they're kind of more or less, and I'm talking about English actors in films as well. They all the same. I mean, in my day, a famous actor had to have a certain walk. They all had certain walks, you know. Fonda sort of stooped forward. John Wayne was like a ballet dancer. His movement was unbelievable on the screen, and yet he was this big butch cowboy, and yet he moved so gracefully. Robert Mitchum had a walk. Everybody had a walk, you know. And of course, the public, the general public, and especially the teenagers of that era, loved that kind of thing. They liked the fact that, you know, Mitchum had that rolly walk, you know, and stuff. Everybody's now sort of dross. They're all the same. Yeah. And so that's why, you know, I'm a bit outrageous when because I was a good-looking boy, and I send those looks up. even though now I'm not that same good-looking boy, but in my head, I think it's just as amusing.
But do you know what is interesting? I mean, you're incredibly dashing, and you talk about the class thing that you still have. When I saw you walk out on that stage in Las Vegas, you still own it, and there's that confidence that you should have. We seem to have lost our class and our confidence in show business now. People come on in T-shirts. What are they thinking?
Well, exactly. I mean, you know, I came through the war years, and people then queued up to go to the Variety Theatre. I went to the Bricks and Empress and played Sixpence, and I went up in the Gods and the Camberwell Palace. And the reason why we were there is we wanted to see something that was not like down our street, you know, because down our street it was bombed houses and everything. The war years were terrible, and that era we wanted to see glamour, and that's why I always dreamed of being in show business, because I wanted to be part of that glamour. And as you say, that's gone now, and I think it's terrible. I mean, I'm always still overdressed when I go out and dress for the first nights and want to look like a star or somebody from show business, somebody different from the norm. But as you say now, they're anti-showbiz people. I mean, Diana Dawes once said to me, one of the things she said to me, who was a very glamorous star, never use public transport. And I said, why, Di? She said, because if somebody sees you on a bus, they're not going to pay to see you in concert. And it's true.
That's a very good point.
You don't expect to see somebody famous sitting on a bus. But nowadays, it's embraced. You know, they all wander about in buses and want to be ordinary. What's the point of that?
Yeah, it's a very good point. I wonder, of all the people you've met, who impressed you the most?
Oh, so many. There's very few disappointments. I mean, Roger Moore was my neighbour, and I met Gregory Peck. You know, he was, wonderful. He held his hand out and said, "Hi, Jess, I've heard all about you," like they all say in America, and my bloody arm wouldn't move. I was so starstruck. I've seen him in all the movies. And you know when the saliva in your mouth goes, your top lip stays on the top of your teeth and you can't. And my hand wouldn't move. Oh, I mean, I've met everybody. I have to say that I was with Arnold Schwarzenegger about a month ago now at the Ritz, and I said to him that we both use the same gym in Lambeth, although different men were running it. I mean, the boss man when I was there was the guy who hits the gong on J. Arthur Rank Films. He ran the gym. So, but I was a bit disappointed in Schwarzenegger because once again, like Kirk Douglas and like a lot of those big stars through the years, they are much shorter than you think. And I'm so lucky to be 6'1.5" because, you know, everybody thinks that some of these stars are tall, and the majority of them I've met are very, very small. And that's the big surprise to me. But there's been very few disappointments apart from the height of them.
Yes.
They all seem pretty good people. I mean, you know, we did go through an age where they stupidly drank too much, you know, and Doris lost her husband, Alan Lake, who wasn't a big star, but even if you weren't a big star and you were a straight actor, you had to drink a lot. I never did because I was so conscious of my looks, and I thought that's all I had, so I didn't want to take drugs and stick needles in my arm and drink lots of beer, so I got fat and bloated. I mean, you look at early Richard Burton and later Richard Burton, you can see in his face, you know, that you know, he's bloated and the eyes don't sparkle. The same with O'Toole, who was such a beautiful man later on because of the drink, and it goes on and on and on. So I never got dragged into that boozy thing, which was very that was the in thing, you know, through the late 50s and 60s. You know, a lot of the Ollie Reed was another one who was a dear friend of mine. In the end, that killed him. He drank, I don't know what was he drinking that day? I mean, he would drink anything. He could have been drinking brandies, and he arm wrestled sailors in Malta. And I know he did that because when I made a film with him, Assassination Bureau, we were good mates anyway. And he said, "Will you bring some of your friends up? So I'll buy them lunch and we'll arm wrestle." So I took Shane Fenton up, who was Elvin Stardust. I took Michael Cox, who had a hit called Angela Jones. And I took all my pop mates up and acting mates up. And he'd buy us lunch at Pinewood, and then he'd arm wrestle us all, one at a time, and beat us all, and thank you very much, and good night. It was unbelievable. And he died through arm wrestling sailors in Malta after a boozy lunch. What silliness.
Wow, what a shame. And again, I suppose the ultimate victory in show business is to survive, and you're still here, and you're still doing it, and you're still on tour. You've won the war, really, haven't you?
Well, this new show, you know, is so. As I say, hopefully, if I come out the way I worked it, I just wanted to be a nice jest. They all got on with me. We had lots of fun. I made people laugh. The first episode seems to have been cut, so that I'm a little bit of a bad boy, and I can't wait now to see next Tuesday, which is 9:00 ITV. And I think next Tuesday is the episode where I go to Liberace's museum with Bobby Crush. So we'll see how they've cut that.
I worry for Bobby. He seems to be the one, if anyone, who's going to kick off and come out of this badly. He's the one I'm worried about.
Yes, Bobby is a gay man, as we all know now, because he came out last week. He's the only gay man in the show. And he does seem to be vulnerable. And when he first broke down, after they showed those clips of us when we were younger, I thought it was because he had changed so much. And I said, "Bobby, look, don't worry. You know, you can get that weight off." And he said, "No, it's not that. It's because, you know, I'm a homosexual man. My father was my roadie. So everywhere I went, I couldn't talk to people because he wouldn't understand. So he had a terrible youth in as much as, you know, his strict sort of father, well, not strict, but people didn't understand in those days anyway. I mean, there were no gay men in those days, apart from in show business, and you might find one or two in the West End. So it was very, very different. I mean, obviously, we're all glad it's changed now. But for Bobby, you see, it was a terrible youth because there he was, this big star, big star, wonderful-looking boy, and couldn't speak to any blokes because of his father. So it was very difficult for him.
I hope it's not a setup. I hope they do you all proud. And that show at the end, I know it's going to be played in full on ITV3. So if nothing else, we can forget the 5 edited versions and watch the big finale, which was a fabulous concert.
You're the only one that has seen it then.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was there.
People in Vegas, of course.
Yeah, there was only a few hundred of us. It was a wonderful night. Really lovely.
Listen, it's great talking to you.
Jess, thank you so much for your time. Congratulations on everything. You can find out more. Put Jess Conrad into Google and get the tour dates as well. You'll be continuing to tour the UK, and we look forward to Tuesday night, 9:00 ITV for Last Laugh in Las Vegas. You're a legend, you're a gentleman. Jess Conrad, thank you for your time.
Gee, it's been great talking to you, and I hope I haven't ravaged on too much.
Loved every second. Thank you.
It's really the reason why we speak so long with you is because you're such a good interviewer. So thank you very much.
You're very kind.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jess.
Bye.